Here we go in 3, 2, 1.
Folks, what is up? And welcome back to the Vol Talk podcast. You're here with Blake and you're here with Austin. We are two brothers who love talking about all things volunteer sports. And tonight, Austin, we are getting into the details of the biggest storyline in sports right now, which is this kind of trade that happened between UCLA and Tennessee. It's what people are calling it. It's not actually a trade, but we have Joey Aguilar as our quarterback that's coming in through the transfer portal. And of course, we got to talk about the details on him and what this QB1 battle is going to look like between him and Merklinger. And we're going to get into the details of the NIL money, but you know, the NIL money is looking like possibly we expect Aguilar to be QB1, but the thing is we've got some questions on his stats, on his tape, so I don't think it's as clear cut as people might think it is.
No. So just to get into the details of kind of what happened, we had a live stream on this kind of as it was happening. We didn't have all the details, but now we have more details. So we're kind of putting out just a concise video on the situation, what we think of the QB battle, who's going to be the starter going into next year. So essentially, everybody knows the Nico situation. We'll kind of leave that to the side. The Nico situation happens. Aguilar visits with Tennessee. That was like his first visit since hitting the portal, and he committed here. And at that moment, we didn't really know what the NIL money looked like. But keep in mind, he was at UCLA, never played a snap for UCLA, committed there during the winter portal. He transferred from Appalachia State. He was at App State for 2 years, and he was in junior college for 2 years before that. So, experienced guy, obviously. And he has eligibility because of the Diego Pavia case. That's the reason he has an extra year of eligibility at this point. It's very unclear to me. I don't know exactly how this works, but it's unclear to me whether like none of the JUCO counts towards eligibility and he has 2 years left. But from my understanding, he only has one season left of eligibility. Don't really know how that works or if that will be a rule going forward, because I'm not too sure I want that to be a rule going forward, to be completely honest with you. Um, but he came here now, and like you said, Blake, it's a de facto trade for Nico, I guess, if you will. We get Joey Aguilar, and there are some questions, man. I don't know who's going to be the starter, but as you said, as you alluded to, it looks like we're paying him 1.2 million. That's the report from Pete Thamel. So to me, 1.2 million, they're going to give him a strong opportunity to win the job. Now, that's not, I don't think that's a big enough investment to say, okay, no matter what, you're going to start, because at the end of the day, he still has 4 months to learn a completely new offense, and it's going to be a tough task, man. And we'll get into the details of all that. But so yeah, I think it's like, yes, he's going to have a strong opportunity to start, but I don't think it's a strong enough investment like 2.5 million that okay, it's a guarantee that he's going to start.
Yeah, and thanks for that kind of rundown of kind of what's happened so far. Again, folks, if you haven't seen our live reaction, please go check that out. We were live reacting as the news broke. The news had just broke that Aguilar was coming to Tennessee, and we live reacted to that. And that was a fun episode. That was a fun live show. So go check that out if you have a moment. But for this video, as Austin said, we're going to dig into these details that Austin just kind of went over. The fact that Aguilar is here now, and the reports are that he's getting this 1.2 million in the NIL. And now, what does that mean for our QB battle? And so we're going to go into the details of that. Folks, if you have been watching but you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take a second just to subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Give us a like on the video, drop a comment. Let us know what you think. We're going to be discussing Merklinger, Aguilar. We're going to be discussing Aguilar's tape and kind of what he's looked like the past couple of years at Appalachian State. Let us know what you think. Give us your thoughts. We know all Vols fans have their thoughts, so we'd love to discuss that with you in the comments. Also, let us know what you think of the new graphics. Austin, we got some new graphics for our show. We're trying to, again, we keep telling our people, our listeners, that we're going to slowly up our production quality, and we've been doing that. So let us know what you think of the new graphics as well. But, Austin, let's talk first about Aguilar himself. Okay, because I think that's probably the biggest question on everyone's mind, right? Is we need to learn who this guy is, right? We've got 2 years of play at Appalachian State that we can kind of look at. The JUCO stuff, whatever, JUCO, right?
Yeah.
What was interesting to me, Austin, looking through his stats, and you noted this, you might have noted this on the live stream, but he actually got worse last year compared to his junior season in 2023. Talk us through that.
Yes, he did, and pretty much every like metric backs that up. If you just look at the traditional counting stats, he got worse from that perspective. He also got worse from a PFF grade perspective. He got worse from an EPA perspective. So from pretty much every and wins, right? He also 9 wins in 2023, only 5 wins in 2024. So for all intents and purposes, he definitely got worse his second season at App State. And I don't know why, right? I don't know enough about App State, the team, to see, okay, what key receivers did they lose or what key pieces on the offensive line did they lose? I'm not exactly sure about that. But what I do know is that's pretty concerning. Like, why did you get worse your second year
Right.
into a system? That is pretty concerning. Especially considering like the amount of time we're going to need him to learn our system. So and I don't know why. All I can tell you is from what I've seen, from the clips I've seen, from what I've gathered from PFF's data, is that this is a guy who has Brett Favre's mentality of a gunslinger, right? But with Peyton Manning 2015 noodle arm. That's kind of what I'm seeing from this guy. Like he doesn't have a great arm, and that makes sense because he went the JUCO route. He was a 3-star in the transfer portal, meaning that he's not a big toolsy guy, right? We talk about with recruiting, the reason guys don't get recruited or they don't have high star ratings is because they're looking for traits. That's the main thing they're looking for coming out of high school and even out of the portal. They're looking for traits. That's why UCLA just gave Nico $2 million because he has the traits. Joey Aguilar does not have the traits. I think he could have some intangibles that I like, just from what I've seen, but he doesn't have a big arm. But he throws the ball like he does have a big arm. He makes decisions like he has a big arm. He tries to fit balls into windows that just aren't there for a guy with that kind of arm strength, which is concerning. And that's why he has the high turnover worthy play rate. But with that, throws he can make, since he takes chances downfield, he also has a lot of big time throws. So there's good with the bad. I think the only plus side from that, like the only thing that's making me feel better about that, is something we did discuss in the live stream, Blake, which is Heupel has been able to coach turnovers out of quarterbacks. Like, just Heupel's system protects quarterbacks from making turnovers. I can't really explain it other than the reads are very simple and he schemes receivers wide open. And so it's harder to make a mistake in an offense where there's less reads to make and receivers just tend to be more open. And I think a guy like Aguilar could take advantage of that since he's not afraid to push the ball down the field. But with his lack of arm strength, some of those, don't be surprised if we go from Joe Milton overthrows to Joey Aguilar underthrows that are intercepted.
That would be rough. It'd be nice if we could just kind of get the Goldilocks perfect amount here. I'd prefer an accurate quarterback. But you talked a little bit about the optimistic view of Joey Aguilar, so let's lean into that a little bit. We briefly note, and we'll maybe talk a little bit more about the pessimistic side, right? So last year, 14 interceptions on only 23 touchdowns. And so definitely a worse year, like we've been talking about. His completion percentage dropped down to about 56%, compared to his junior year was nearly 64%. So yeah, again, question marks, right? Could it have been the level of competition they were playing? Could it have been Appalachian State's team, in terms of them losing key pieces like you were talking about, receivers and whatnot, and linemen, so on and so forth. But let's talk about the optimistic side of this, which is that, especially his junior year, he did show that he could be really great. I mean, he had nearly 3,800 yards, again, with that 64% completion ratio, 33 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, showed that he has really good qualities. So under Heupel's system, like you talked about, the separation, man. That was one gripe we had with Nico, is that there was these receivers that got schemed wide open, had 5 yards of separation. You talked about that on the live stream. 5 yards is a massive, that is wide the hell open, to use your term, your phrase. So with guys that are that open, maybe, Heupel can scheme something where it's not quite as deep for Joey to make up for his lack of arm strength. I mean, do you think that he has a possibility to thrive in that kind of scheme?
I think he could. I think one thing that will be better, I think, from Aguilar to or from Nico to Aguilar is that he won't be afraid to make those throws, and he'll be able to he'll just take the chance. And like I said, there's going to be some that are underthrown. Um, but he still has decent enough arm strength to be a starting quarterback. And it's not like 2015 Peyton Manning was a little bit of an exaggeration, but and like we said, Heupel gets dudes wide open. So if you underthrow a guy that has 5 yards of separation by 3 yards, he can slow down and still make a play on the ball. That's also opens up, causing a lot of offense or defensive pass interference. That's one of the most annoying things in football right now is the underthrown deep ball causing defensive pass interference. But it's nice when you're on offense. So that could help us out there. I think the best thing about this is whether he's brought in to start or not. Like they had the money from Nico, right? We had spent 2.5 on Nico, and we're only spending 1.2 on Joey Aguilar. At least that's around the amount we're spending. Whether he's going to start or not, it's good to have competition. Even if Merklinger wins this job, which I think Heupel and the staff will give Merklinger a chance to win this job. I hope. That's my hope. But I also think they will, because you can't just say, okay, we're going to let an outsider come in and just immediately start. I just think that's a bad precedence to set. And listen, competition makes everyone better. So Joey Aguilar will make Merklinger better. Also, Joey Aguilar is going to bring a chip on his shoulder. We've talked about that. The de facto trade or whatever. UCLA basically told him, we don't want you. And so that's going to motivate that guy to play better, or to want to play hard at the very least. So that's going to be a good aspect of it as well. But I'm also looking forward to mostly like how does Merklinger respond to this, because what I want to see from Merklinger, which we'll get into later as well. But what I want to see from him is this fires him up. He works harder. He wants the job bad, and he shows that, okay, I'm the guy. He's been here since December 2023. He knows the system, and if he wins this job, I think we're better off. I really do. I think we're going to be better off. But if he doesn't, that's okay, because like I said, I think Aguilar does have potential. He was going to start this year for UCLA. That's a Big Ten team who is, I mean, they're desperate. We've already talked about that before. That's why I think they made the move for Aguilar to begin with, right? A guy from App State, whatever. But so he has the capability of starting on the FBS level. It's just we're losing a lot of tools, man. That's at the end of the day. That's why people were still excited for Nico's, because he had 5-star tools. We are losing that. But as we've noted, Blake, Nico had a lot of other issues, right? Like processing. Like he was a slow processor. I think Aguilar will speed that up. It's just he won't bring elite arm strength like we saw from Nico. He just won't do that. But everything else, man, who knows? Like again, who knows with this? I want Merklinger to win the job, not because I think Aguilar can't play, but just because I think it just makes sense, right? He committed here out of high school. He's been here for 1.5 years now. So I think he should win the job. I think he has more tools, and I think the competition's good for him. So either way, I think Aguilar is a good addition.
So the optimistic view of Aguilar is the main thing is the competition he's bringing. And then, of course, the fact that he does have upside himself in terms of some quick decision making, pulling that trigger faster than Nico would have. Because I think a lot of that's a good point, because I think a lot of the sacks last year that Nico did take were potentially, look, I'm going to try to avoid a stray to who. But I think a lot of the sacks potentially could have been avoided if Nico had gotten rid of the ball sooner. So, quicker decision making from Aguilar, that's the upside there. And then just like you said, that chip on his shoulder and that swag he might be able to bring, and that can really fire a guy up if he responds the right way. And we think our early impression of him is that he would respond the right way. So that's the optimistic view, and we'll get into. I think you're hitting the nail on the head with the competition with Merklinger. And again, we talked about on the live stream. I agree with you that ultimately, I think Merklinger having more time to learn the system and develop. I think that's ultimately what will probably give us the best chance. And of course, if star ratings are to be trusted at all, technically Merklinger had higher ratings coming out of high school, right? We've talked about how that's not really reliable, but it is something. But real quick before we move fully into the QB battle and kind of what you want to see at a Merklinger, and kind of our predictions for the battle, let's talk about the pessimistic side of Aguilar. So you already talked a little bit about how he got worse last year compared to his junior season. You've talked about underthrowing. You've talked about arm strength. Are there any other things that you could see? Maybe what's a worst case scenario in terms of Aguilar coming in and, okay, let's say he does somehow win the job. What would you say would be a worst case scenario with Aguilar?
Honestly, dude, worst case scenario is he wins the job and it never really felt like a quarterback competition. Like it never really felt like Merklinger had a chance because, I mean, not to get too deep into the weeds, but dude's been here for a year and a half. Like if he's not ready to start or he's not ready to start on in a pinch, then that's a problem. That's a developmental problem for Merklinger. So that's a problem. And obviously, if he plays really badly, if he plays really badly and we stick to our guns and we don't bench him, that will bother me as well. Like you have to have a quick trigger with this guy. You really do. I mean, this is not an elite level starter. And so I think where we were patient with Nico last year, the patience with Nico last year made sense. I think patience should not be granted to Aguilar. I really don't. I mean, he's been here for 4 months. Why would he deserve that? Or he's going to be here for 4 months if he is a starter. So, and also the main thing too is the issue that we're running now with the de facto trade, right? Which is if Nico balls out for UCLA and Aguilar stinks it up, then that's gonna suck. I mean, that is gonna really really suck. Um, I'm not saying that's not my prediction, by the way, people. Anyone watching, it's not my prediction. I don't think Nico's going to ball out at UCLA. I think they're going to be lucky to make a bowl game. But listen, I mean, we have a tough schedule, man. And if we don't get better quarterback play, we lost a lot on defense. We lost a lot in the running back room. So we could be looking at 7, 8 wins, which is a step back. We could be even looking at 5 or 6 wins, which people don't want to talk about, but
Oh,
that is a
God.
possibility. I
Don't
think
hurt me with that, bro. Dang.
it would, but I mean, it's all within the realm of possibility if we just get completely poor quarterback play. Because believe it or not, as bad as Nico was at points last year, it could be worse. Like it can get worse. Like I've seen it. We've seen it worse as Tennessee fans, and I'm not even going to bring up names, but we have seen worse quarterback play here at the University of Tennessee than Nico last year. That's just a fact, man. So if it gets to a point where Aguilar is okay, he there's a competition, but it's not really a competition. He's thrown out there, and then he throws 3 picks in the first game against Syracuse. Which, listen, go look at Aguilar's resume, man. Three picks in a game and a fumble is not out of the realm of possibility for Joey Aguilar. That's the kind of game he likes to play. Now he's a little Jameis Winston in a sense, where sometimes he'll give you 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. Like that's the kind of stat line I expect to see out of Aguilar a lot this season, unfortunately. But if he goes out there, throws 3 picks, and there's just the offense is just dead, we can't move the ball, and they just keep beating their head against the wall, they keep bringing Aguilar out, and they don't give Merklinger a chance. It's like, well, for one, that sucks because we're going to suck. And for two, that sucks because that means you just have no faith in this young quarterback who has committed here, who has stayed here, who you've put a year and a half in development into. And it's like, so that'll bother me a little bit if that happens.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. That would definitely be a worst case scenario because then that kind of brings in the situation that we talked about again on the live stream and we've talked about before with the NIL money and the boosters, right? Okay, we are paying them 1.2 million. If it's anywhere near that in terms of the report, right? Thamel said that he believes it's around that amount, then that kind of indicates, okay, maybe the boosters are almost holding Heupel hostage and saying, "Hey, you have to start this guy." I don't see that being the case. We're paying him that amount. Maybe we paid him that because we felt like we had to in order to just get someone in this transfer portal in the spring, get a deal done quickly. But I mean, surely the boosters and everyone else is going to want the best guy winning, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that more. But real quick before we move to that, I did want to ask you what your thoughts are on, okay, let's assume a best case scenario if Aguilar wins the job. Now we've already kind of alluded to our predictions for the QB1 battle and thinking that we're kind of hoping Merklinger is going to come out on top. But before we fully move into that and what we would need to see from Merklinger, let's talk about what we would need to see from Aguilar if he does win the job in order to have a best case scenario.
So before I get into that, I gotta touch on the money because 1.2 seems like a lot in today's college football, and a couple years ago it would have been. But you gotta think, if let's say a baseline for a roster is 20 million these days, let's just say that's a baseline. I don't think we're spending that on a roster, but some teams are. So let's say that's just as a baseline. 1.2 million for a $20 million roster is only 6% of the cap, let's say. That's not a lot for a quarterback. I mean, in NFL, you're looking at like 40% of your cap space going towards your quarterback. So 6% of your, let's say, theoretical $20 million cap is not a lot of money. So I don't think there will be pressure to play him, which is I'm thankful for. And you really did have to get competition in there because listen, McIntyre is just not going to be ready. He's a true freshman that weighs like 150 pounds right now. You don't want that guy to be the backup. You don't. Like that's just a recipe for disaster. So, and we've seen true freshmen have to be thrown in there before. We just don't want that dude. So you had to get at least a capable guy in there just in case Merklinger doesn't develop through the offseason. And, of course, I already mentioned McIntyre. So, yeah, it's not that much money, and I don't think they'll be pressured. Now, as far as a best case scenario for Aguilar in particular, listen, I mean, I think best case scenario is, he's just runs the offense and he eliminates some of those turnovers and he keeps the big time throw rate but reduces the turnover worthy play rate and we win 8 to 10 games. Like 10 is if like we've developed a lot, like the receivers have taken a massive jump. That's a big part of this, dude, is the receiving core. And like that's why I can't give you a hardcore answer on this right now because we have to see how the receivers have developed. Like the receiving core is going to be a big part of this equation. We also have a lot of new faces on defense, like Jermod McCoy. His health is in question for the beginning of the season. Like he tore his ACL in the offseason. I don't know if he'll be recovered in time to play week 1. That's going to be a big question mark as well. So we have a lot of question marks on the team. And so like a best case scenario right now is for me to say 8 to 10 wins right now is like best case scenario. And, like I say, Aguilar kind of eliminates some of those turnovers and whatnot. But, I think Vols fans should be happy with that. I think at the end of the day, Blake, we've talked about this in the Nico situation. Is this is not an easy situation to be put in, dude. This was not an easy situation, man. You lost your 5-star quarterback with all the tools, whatever, and we've hashed out how he didn't live up to that potential, but you still lost your starter 4 months before the season, man. You lost your starter 4 months before the season, and you're expected to replace that guy when everyone else is kind of locked into their rosters. We had to basically get the guy that left UCLA. I mean, like that's why it's a trade because there's not that many starters leaving their teams. The only starter leaving this team is because a new starter went to UCLA. So it's like
the starter that left us. Exactly.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So it was an extremely difficult position to be put in. So I think we at the end of the day, we have to show some grace to the coaching staff, but I'll also say the offense has to improve. Like it does, because there was points last year under Nico that the offense was completely unwatchable. The offensive line has to take a big jump, and the receivers have to take a big jump because again, going back to development, we have to see development because we've started to get better recruiting classes. Now we're not where we need to be, and that's a whole nother offseason discussion. But we've gotten better recruiting classes. We've gotten 5 stars like Mike Matthews. If Mike Matthews doesn't take a big jump, because listen, a great receiver can make bad quarterbacks look good. Like that happens in the NFL. It happens in college. I mean, look at Ohio State last year, man. Will Howard wasn't all that great, even though he played great in the playoff run. It was mostly because he had guys like Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka in the receiving core to make him look better. Like that's just the reality. So if none of our young receivers take any step at all, and the defense, I mean, listen, people, the defense is going to regress. That some people don't want to hear that. It's going to happen. The defense is not going to be as good as last year. And the running game's probably going to regress, right? We just lost one of our best running backs ever. So we need to see development from, I'm looking at the O-line and the receivers. And if that doesn't happen, then I'm not going to show as much grace towards the coaching staff because those are separate from the quarterback situation, man. They are. Now, it's all interconnected. It's a team sport or whatever. But again, you can tell a difference like between individual play. Like you can see a difference just by looking at the individual. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
You bring up an excellent point, and absolutely, we need to see progression from some of these other groups, some of these other positions, because you've noted people. Yes, we don't really want to talk about it, but the running game was so good because of Dylan Sampson and the stable behind him, and the defense was so good because of a generational player, James Pierce Jr. and Omar Norman Laden and the like, that it's it's less about the fact that it's not like we don't have a ton of good depth. We've got some decent depth. The problem is that it was just so freaking good, last year, that it is going to regress because we just, don't have, unless some sort of miracle happens in terms of these players developing, we don't have that talent because they're going to the NFL. And it's a good place to be in. We want our players to be going to the NFL. But with that being said, you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of we need this progression from the receivers and from the O-line in order to supplement now yet another big question mark in QB play. So definitely going to be looking for that. My best case scenario I want to say real quick for Aguilar is, man, look, let me go on a little crazy rant. Okay. I would love to freaking see Aguilar come in with that chip on his shoulder and he wins the job because he's shown the coaches that he's got what it takes. He's reducing those turnover worthy plays and he's making the big time throws. He's hitting the open receivers. Boom. He becomes our starter and he goes on to freaking just absolutely put the nail in the coffin on this Nico situation. Nico's over there floundering at UCLA, and then Aguilar is just almost turning into like a Heisman worthy season because he's got this massive chip on his shoulder. I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman. What I'm saying is I would love to freaking see that, is that he just, because of that chip on his shoulder, because of that confidence that he's got, and then now he's got that just extra chip on his shoulder to play for, that he comes out and just balls out and goes crazy. That would be incredible. However, I don't think it's going to happen because he's only got 4 months. And I read something recently, Austin, that's interesting, and this is the case for Nico as well, they have to finish their classes. And so in order, before they can actually be at the other school, because the semester's not over yet. Now, here's what kind of sucks too for us. UT's semester ends in May. Their finals are sometime in early May or whatever the case may be. So Nico should be on campus at UCLA by probably mid-May, right as soon as their summer semester starts. However, UCLA is on a quarter system as opposed to the semester system that UT's on. And so Joey Aguilar, his finals, apparently, from what I read, aren't until like June. So he may not be on campus until June.
So we're talking about 2 months, like 2.5 months to learn an offense. I mean, listen, that I didn't know. That's new information to me. I had no idea. I kind of figured, I didn't even know they had to finish their classes, to be honest, because I felt like at this point, I just assumed the kids weren't going to school anymore. That's what I assume. I mean, they can hop in the portal whenever the hell they want. They can demand all this money. Like, so I just assumed like they're not even expected to go to class anymore. That was kind of my assumption. This is news to me. Apparently, they still go to class, whether they're actually there or not.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if he gets on campus in June, people, you have to tamper expectations, because I mean, some people just get their expectations so high no matter what. But like, you just can't. You have to keep in mind he's going from App State and then went to UCLA, is starting to learn a new system at UCLA, right? He's starting to learn a new offense. He
Yep.
was at practice when Nico entered the portal. There was literally reports saying, dude, the UCLA quarterbacks are still at practice. They're acting like nothing's happening. And then boom, Nico goes to UCLA, blah, blah, blah. So he's in the middle of learning a new system at UCLA. Now he's expected to finish his classes, get to Tennessee, and learn a new offense in 2.5 months. And again, it's a QB friendly offense with very few reads, but that is just not. Listen, I think with that information and with where I've been leaning already in this conversation, Blake, I think that Aguilar is a safety net. I think he is a safety net just in case Merklinger. Listen, Merklinger, he's 19 right now. Even if he turns 20 by the start of the season, that's still an extremely young player.
Hmm.
And, the coaches know more about him than any of us, right? About what they expect his play to be. So I would understand with a guy like that, you need a safety net. You need a guy that has experience on the FBS level, has started games, he started every game he played at App State. That's the kind of like backup safety net that you like to have. But listen, I think Merklinger's still the favorite, dude. With all this information, I just broke down that, if we spend 20 million on our roster this year, that's only 6% of what we spend on our roster. That's not a big investment, dude. It's a 1-year investment. It's money that they didn't even know they were going to have, right, Blake? I mean, they still have what, 1.5 million or 1.3 million left over from the Nico deal, which they need to start using that, by the way. They need to get in the
Yep.
portal. They need to get some guys around whoever the quarterback's going to be. But yeah, it's just not. I think the number looks big because that's a lot of money to us, Blake. But I think in today's college landscape, it's just not that much money. It's really not. And I
Yeah.
think you could argue. I don't think it is, but you could argue that's backup money. It's backup money to some teams. It is. I mean, UCLA's paying Nico 2 million, so they're paying him more. So, and like, I think the difference is pretty marginal. So, like, at the end of the day, man, I think Merklinger should be the favorite to win this job. And I'm rooting for him to win the job, dude, just because I think he'll perform better. I do. I think he will perform better.
I think so too, and I hope so. So let's hop right into that conversation to kind of wrap up this episode, which is just our thoughts on the QB battle and what we want to see from Merklinger. Real quick, I do want to give a caveat, right? So I was reading this article. I don't know if you can trust it, but what I was reading was quotes directly from the UCLA coach. Now he might not know what the hell's going on. We've talked about how
Yeah,
he's kind of
he didn't know what was going on in his introductory press conference. So
exactly. So he could totally be wrong. But what he was saying is that technically they have to finish out, like you said, their classes, whether they're actually going to them or not. I don't know. And who knows? Maybe we're going to pay Aguilar to just come, skip his classes and come be on the practice field, and then he'll finish his classes online or
I
something. I
just,
don't know.
I hate
But
to get on a rant, but it's just like, why are we pretending that they're?
right,
I don't
they're
get it.
not student athletes anymore, right?
I don't get why we're playing that game, but
It's unfortunate because it's definitely fundamentally changed college football, but that's a discussion for another time, folks. We have check out our previous episodes, especially our live streams on the Nico situation. We have delved way into the NIL situation and how it's changing the landscape of college football. It is very unfortunate indeed. But let's talk, Austin, about the QB battle. And you brought up a great point a minute ago that I'm really glad you brought up, which is this situation with the NIL money. And we were thinking, oh man, 1.2 million sounds like quite a bit. Maybe that is starting money, but maybe you're talking about the landscape shifting a little bit, and maybe 1.2 million is not starting money. And so maybe we shouldn't assume that, this coaching staff is looking at him as kind of not necessarily an automatic starter, but as, you know, hey, this might be QB1 material. Maybe that is backup money. And so, first and foremost, let's establish, I think we're pretty confident that this is truly going to be an open
Yes,
QB1 battle
I
going into
believe
the
so.
season, right?
I believe so, man. That's where I'm at with it. I think they're going to give Aguilar a chance to start, but I think they should also, and they will also give Merklinger a chance to start as well. Because again, 1.2 million seems like a lot, but it's not as much in the grand scheme of things because we were just paying our former quarterback 2.5. So again, that money opened up in a way we didn't think it would. So we had the resources anyways. And I also think you had to go get a guy that can challenge Merklinger, right? Because people mentioned gas pipe. I don't think gas pipe was challenging Merklinger. I really don't. I think like you can't go get a backup in the portal that's never played, who doesn't have any FBS experience, and expect him to really challenge for the starting job. He's not going to actually challenge. You're going to call it a competition, but he's not. He's not really competing. Like we're not paying him anything, so there's no investment there. There's no incentive to at least give him a chance at the job. And Merklinger's just going to win the job. And then all our eggs are in Merklinger's basket. All our eggs are in that basket. Like, right? You have McIntyre, but again, we've discussed, I just don't think that's a viable option this year. So now you split your eggs into two baskets, right? You have two options. You have, okay, option A, which Austin's belief option A is Merklinger, and then now you have option B in Joey Aguilar. So it's better to have, it's better to have that backup option that will really challenge for the starting job instead of, because there's plenty of times in NFL or even in college football where it's a starting job, but it's not, or it's a QB battle for the starting job, but it's not really a battle. Like there's a specific guy they want to win the battle. I don't think there is a specific guy they want to win this battle, Blake. I think it really is like, okay, best man wins. If Aguilar comes in, he has that swagger, he wins over the locker room, and he's a quick learner, then okay, expect him to start week one. If Merklinger continues to pick up the offense, I think he's already well liked by his teammates. If he shows the command of the offense, because keep in mind, Blake, he wasn't getting QB1 reps in practice during the spring. He wasn't. Those were Nico's reps. So how is Merklinger going to respond to getting QB1 reps? Okay, we're going to see that. And from there, best man wins. Again, though, if you had just gotten like a pure backup option, that wouldn't have been the case. It would have just been, okay, all the reps go to Merklinger. And if he's good, great. If he's not good, well, that sucks because we don't have a viable backup.
And so that feeds into your point earlier that this competition should be a good thing for Merklinger. It should,
Yes.
if he's the right kind of guy, it should bring out the best in him, right? And I want to note too, for those fans, I'm sure there are some watching this episode, some listeners of the podcast, supporters of the podcast. We appreciate your support, but we know you're out there that some of you looked at this Aguilar acquisition and you were worried and you're like, I don't like this guy. This guy looks like he's trash. And look, he does have some bad tape, Austin. You noted before we started recording. Truly and honestly, he's got some bad tape. He's got a few pick sixes in his highlight reel, quote unquote highlight reel. And so I get it. Some fans were less than enamored. And I think part of that is because they had too high of expectations for the transfer portal in the spring. They were thinking that we'd be able to land a big name. And thankfully, look, it sucks for us, but thankfully there are still some loyal players in this college landscape, and they're not bolting on their team in spring. And frankly, it's a dumb idea to do anyway, because as we've been talking about, you only have a few months. But some Vols fans were less than enamored with the Aguilar acquisition, and they're worried about him, right? The fact of the matter is based on what we're seeing, rest assured, it's not guaranteed that he's going to be our starter. And we think ultimately this should be a good thing for either Merklinger or Aguilar. Regardless of who wins, it should bring out the best in both of them. That's what a QB battle should do, right? So, and let's transition now. Speaking of bringing out the best in Merklinger, let's transition to what we want to see out of Merklinger. And, you talked about how leadership is a big aspect of this. We just saw on social media Merklinger posting that he and Mike Matthews went to church together on Easter. That was awesome to see, right? You want to see that out of your quarterback, building that relationship with his receivers. But what do we need to see, Austin, and what do you want to see out of Merklinger, assuming that he does enter this competition, he gives it his all, and then he ends up winning the starting job?
I mean, we from the outside looking in, we won't be able to see the intangibles in practice and stuff. We have to go based on what the coaches say. So I won't be able to see, okay, he's checking these boxes or whatever. But to start the season, I think if he starts week one, we'll be able to see, okay, is he confident in his job? Like, because some QB battles end and it's like, okay, you won the battle by this much, but right when you make a mistake, we're pulling you and we're putting the other guy in. I think we'll be able to tell that in week one. Like, is he confident? Is he out there giving the calls, running the offense with a lot of confidence, and the performance will speak for itself. Whatever, we don't know what the performance is going to be at the end of the day. I can't tell you whether Jake Merklinger is going to be good or not. I have zero clue, like at all. So we'll have to see because we haven't seen the reps. I can tell you Aguilar's, he's hit and miss. Like he's hit and miss. That's what we've seen. That's what we've seen on tape. That's what the data says. He's hit and miss. But yeah, if he comes out and he's confident in his starting position, right? If he's not starting, that means Merklinger didn't do what he needed to do. Let's be honest. That means he didn't do what he needed to do. I really do believe that. Just like talking through all this, I think the investment is not as much as people would think, and that's like you have to lean towards the guy who has been here since December 2023. Like you have to.
Essentially, you're saying that it's his job to lose.
I would think, dude, I would think so. Like his teammates already know him. They already seem to like him. And dude, listen, as far as tools are concerned, Merklinger has more tools. That is a fact. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. Aguilar went to JUCO. Like that tells you all you need to know. So we're talking about a guy with the tools. He's been in the system longer. His teammates like him. And then you have the transfer who, is good. It's a good addition. Like he's going to bring competition. He is getting paid probably more than Merklinger, but he brings experience. That's the one thing Aguilar has over Merklinger. He brings the experience, and I think that's what was important more than anything. But still, even with the experience, because you can argue he has experience on the football field on the FBS level, but Merklinger has the experience with the system. So I still would lean towards yes, it's Merklinger's job to lose at this point. And again, if he doesn't win the job, I'm going to be disappointed. Not just because I'm not excited to see Joey Aguilar, because I am intrigued with Aguilar. I really am, because he's a scrappy guy, and I like scrappy guys. I like a gunslinger mentality. Now he has a noodle arm. He doesn't have that great of an arm, but I am intrigued to see if Heupel can coach the turnovers out of him and what he can bring with better weapons around him. But it still tells me, okay, Merklinger didn't win this job. Like, really? What happened to his development? What happened with that? Do we just not believe in the guy? Because he stayed here, he didn't transfer. He could have transferred in the winter window, or maybe he knew the Nico stuff was going on and maybe he expected to be able to play. But either way, he chose to stay here, and it would kind of worry me about the development in the program with players and the quarterbacks if Merklinger has been there and has more tools and he can't win the job over Aguilar, a guy who's been there for, if he's at UCLA in June 1st doing finals, he's going to be here for 2.5 months, comes in, just wins the locker room, learns the system, and Merklinger's booted to the backup. It's like, yeah, that wouldn't be a good look for the coaching staff, and it wouldn't be a good look for Merklinger.
Definitely not, because the odds seem to be stacked in Merklinger's favor and against Aguilar just because of the simple logistics of this situation. And so, I think I agree with you. It's Merklinger's job to lose. Merk Slinger, as he is now affectionately known by the fan base, Merk Slinger. People are high on him. People are ready to ride with Merk Slinger. They want to see what he's got. And there's always some excitement surrounding new quarterbacks, right? I think Aguilar wasn't the flashiest pickup. Again, the circumstances surrounding this kind of necessitated where we were at. And so, but, folks are intrigued, like we are, with Merklinger and what is his development going to be. So we're going to see, like you mentioned, we're not going to know too much except what we hear in Josh Heupel's press conferences.
And I was going to bring that up, because it's like if Heupel comes out and, names a starter, if he comes out and says Aguilar's the guy, then this can change. We'll update you all. I don't think that will
Yeah.
be the case though. That's my guess. Right now, we are guessing as far as like what we think the legitimacy of this QB battle we're declaring is going to be. So, because we really don't know just yet, but we don't have to wait too long, man. It's 4 months away, and we'll see who's playing against Syracuse too. Because we talked about this a little bit on the live stream, but it's not a tune-up this year. Like we need a guy who's going to come in. I mean, that's going to set the tone for the season, man. It's going to set the tone for the season, and it would be nice to have a good QB1, like no doubter, like this is the guy by that time, instead of like, okay, like Aguilar won the job and but if he throws a couple picks and we're going to like, I don't want that. I want a clear starter by week 1.
Well, because if I remember correctly, in Heupel's first year, when there was question marks about Milton and Hendon, it was kind of that. It
Yep.
wasn't certain, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't certain, and we didn't. It wasn't as great of a season. Now, obviously, it was Heupel's first year, so it's you got to tamper expectations, but definitely would feel more confident if there is confidence coming from the coaching staff sooner rather than later. But the fact of the matter is, the just pure logistics are stacked against Aguilar because he's not going to have that much time to learn the system and get ingratiated with the team and get plugged into everything. So, but the bottom line is like you said, Austin, we're going to keep a pulse on it. We're going to keep talking about it. Man, the one thing that's good and it's good news and excites me about all this talk, it's bad news for Aguilar and the QB competition in terms of him only having 4 months until the season, but that's good news for the fans because that means we only got 4 months to football season, baby. So
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
same here, man. It's going to be an exciting off season. Like, yeah, it's disappointing that. Listen, I don't think any Vol fan right now is saying, "Oh, we're gonna make the playoffs again. We're right back in the playoff conversation." I think we have to wait and see. We're gonna have to wait to see how they play. But at least it's exciting because, yeah, there's a lot of question marks, but there's a lot of new faces, man. We're gonna see a lot of new faces this year. And sometimes the box can hit, man. Sometimes that mystery box. Sometimes there's a Lambo. Sometimes Mr. Beast puts a Lambo in the mystery box. So who knows? That comes with the nature of the box, right? And Merklinger is a box right now, man. We do not know. Like his range of outcomes is way worse than Aguilar, meaning he's probably worse than Nico, or he's going to be better than Nico. Like that's his range of outcomes right now. So we don't know. We'll see where he falls on that. But it's going to be exciting either way to keep up with everybody's development and everything throughout these next 4 months.
1,000%. I love the analogy that this is essentially a Mr. Beast mystery box, baby. You could get a Lambo, or you could get $1 or whatever, or a Feastables, whatever.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
Yeah. Is this the new hot and ready take on the secondary? Going into last season, we said, "Hey, man, the secondary is a question mark. They could be like a hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars."
That's a great point. That's a great point. Listen, that I mean, the hot and ready thing is like we just need you to be hot and ready, whatever. But the secondary, everyone thought the secondary was going to be the weakness of this football team last year. That's a fact, dude. Like, and listen, we got go watch. Actually, don't go watch that. It's old news. But in our season preview last year, we said, listen, the weakest position group is going to be the secondary. And it ended up being arguably the second best position group behind the defensive line. So yeah, man, that's a phenomenal point. Sometimes the box can be great. Sometimes the box can be great, man. And that's why I'm hoping we go with the box with Merklinger.
Merklinger. We're riding with Merklinger on the Vol Talk podcast. But at the end of the day, whoever wins the starting job, we want it to be the best guy on the football field that wins us the most games, baby. Because I tell you what, I'm ready to get a streak going against Alabama. I'm ready to beat them down in Bryant-Denny. We're heading down to Bryant-Denny. We're heading down to the swamp. So I need a guy who's ready.
And if you want just a little segment of Alabama hate, Blake,
Always.
Alabama don't got a starter right now too. So Alabama fans, I would just keep quiet for now. Okay. Right now, we won the last game, and y'all have a big question mark at QB. Listen, I keep up with ball, man. Listen, Bama fans, I keep up with it. And yeah, y'all's QB competition is looking a little bit like ours, man. A little grim.
I am always down for Alabama hate. So anytime we can plug that in, we absolutely will. We'll add that to the list of certainties in life: death, taxes, Lance Hurd strays, and Alabama hate on this podcast. So, folks, we appreciate y'all joining for this episode on Joey Aguilar, this new QB in the quarterback room, this quarterback battle coming up between Merklinger and Aguilar. Again, those of you who were a little upset about this situation, rest assured it is going to be a battle, and it could end up being that Lamborghini in the mystery box. Okay. It could just be just like the secondary last year, ends up surprising us and being a strength. So we're going to be hoping for that, folks. We appreciate you joining us for this special episode, specifically on the QB situation at the Tennessee Volunteer football team. We are going to continue to keep a pulse on all things volunteer sports. Our normal programming right now during baseball season is every Monday we're going to be coming at you with an update on the baseball team from the previous weekend's series. So please catch us for that. The baseball team will be heading to Baton Rouge this weekend. Austin,
Big
huge
series,
series
man. Excited
coming
for
up
it.
against us. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So we're looking forward to reviewing that series with you guys again next week. Until then, as always, baby, go Vols.
GBO.